Mary had lived alone for many years. After her husband passed away, her days had become quiet, sometimes too quiet. She spent most of her time tending to her small garden, watering flowers and talking to the birds that visited her window. Her neighbors were kind, but Mary was used to solitude. She had grown accustomed to the gentle rhythm of her simple life, where each day followed the same pattern and there were no surprises. One late afternoon, Mary decided to take a short walk to the market. The sun was dipping low, casting a warm golden light over the town. The streets were mostly empty, except for a few children playing near their homes and a man walking his dog in the distance. Mary enjoyed these walks because they gave her a chance to feel the world around her, even if only for a short while. As she walked along a narrow lane, Mary noticed something unusual near the edge of the road. A man was sitting on the ground, leaning against a tree. He looked tired. His clothes were torn and his face was pale and worried. Something about him made Mary pause. Normally, she would have kept walking, but her heart felt heavy with concern. "Are you all right?" she asked softly, stepping closer. The man looked up slowly. His eyes were sharp and deep, carrying a strange mix of fear and exhaustion. I don't know," he replied in a low voice. "I need help, but if you help me, you'll regret it." Mary froze for a moment. His words were strange and a little frightening. She had never met someone who would say such a thing. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw a hint of desperation, a plea that went beyond the odd warning. Her heart told her to ignore the words and focus on the man's need. "Regret it?" she asked. "How? What do you mean?" He shook his head slowly. "It's better you don't know. Just help me or leave me be." Mary hesitated. She had lived a careful life, and caution was something she usually followed. But there was something about him, something that whispered she could not just walk away. Compassion won over fear. She nodded, smiling gently. "All right, I'll help you. Come with me. You need water and food first." The man, whose name she learned was David, stood unsteadily. He followed her slowly, sometimes leaning heavily on the wall for support. Mary guided him gently, careful not to alarm him. They reached her small home and she helped him sit in her living room. She brought him a cup of warm tea and a sandwich, which he accepted silently, barely lifting his head. Mary studied him as he sipped the tea. He was thin, older than she had first thought, perhaps in his late 50s, and his hands shook slightly. There was a sadness in his eyes, a weight that seemed too heavy for any one person to carry. She wanted to ask him more, but the warning he had given lingered in her mind. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. The quiet of her home felt different with him there, almost as if it held its breath. Finally, David whispered, "Thank you. But remember what I said. You saved me. You'll regret it." Mary gave a small, polite smile, trying to hide the shiver that ran down her spine. "I don't think helping someone is something to regret," she said gently. David's lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't respond but stared into the distance as if watching memories only he could see. Mary felt a mixture of curiosity and unease. Something about him told her that this was not just a man in need. This was a man carrying a story, one that she might only understand if she dared to stay. As the evening grew darker, Mary insisted that David stay until he felt stronger. She gave him a spare blanket and a chair by the fireplace. The room smelled faintly of herbs from her garden and the warm tea she had made. For a short moment it felt like the quiet safety of her home had returned. But that night Mary could not sleep. Strange sounds came from the corners of the house. A door creaked as if touched by an unseen hand. Footsteps, soft and slow, echoed in the hallway, even though she had not heard David move. She tried to tell herself it was just the old house settling, but her mind kept returning to his warning. "You'll regret it." The next morning, David appeared calmer, almost normal. He ate breakfast silently, then asked Mary about the town, the weather, and even her garden. For a moment, he seemed almost human again, and Mary felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps he was just a lost man who needed help, nothing more. Over the next few days, Mary continued to care for David. She brought him food, washed his clothes, and even let him sit in the garden under the sun. David was quiet most of the time, but sometimes he spoke of fleeting memories, a place he had lived long ago, a family he had known, and a life that seemed to have vanished. One afternoon, as Mary tended to her roses, she heard a faint shuffle behind her. Turning quickly, she saw David standing near the corner of the house. He was holding a heavy sack, one that she had never noticed before. The bag looked old, worn, and heavy, and it seemed out of place in her neat, quiet home. "You should see what's inside," David said, his voice low, calm, almost chilling. "Go on, open it." Mary's hands froze. The sack was ominous, yet there was something compelling about it. Curiosity mixed with fear, and she took a cautious step toward it. "David, what is this?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. He smiled faintly, but it was not a warm smile. It was sharp, distant, like someone remembering a secret that no one else should know. "I warned you. You saved me. You'll regret it," he said again. Mary's mind raced. Should she open it? Could she handle what was inside? Yet something told her that turning away now would leave questions that would haunt her forever. With a deep breath, she reached out her hands, just touching the rough surface of the sack. It was heavy, and a shiver ran through her body. She stepped back, hesitating, her heart beating fast. Every instinct in her screamed to stop, yet another part of her urged her to see the truth. She looked at David, and for the first time he did not speak. He simply watched, waiting. That night Mary could not sleep. The sack sat quietly in the corner of the living room, covered with a blanket, but its presence was undeniable. It felt alive, as if it contained not just objects but the weight of someone's entire life. Mary tried to push the thought from her mind, but her curiosity was relentless. She kept thinking about the man she had saved. Was he dangerous? Or was he simply broken? And what did he mean by regret? Mary had helped many people in her life, but never had someone issued a warning like that. Something about David was different. Something about him was unforgettable. By the time the sun rose the next day, Mary knew she could not ignore the sack forever. She would need to face it, no matter the fear, no matter the warning. For better or worse, her quiet life had changed. The lonely widow had invited a stranger into her home, and in doing so, she had stepped into a story that would challenge everything she thought she knew about kindness, danger, and human sorrow. The house felt different now. The shadows were longer, and every sound carried weight. Mary looked at David and saw a man who had survived something unimaginable. She did not know his story yet, but she knew it would change her. And in the corner of the room, the sack waited. Mary could not sleep that night. The sack sat quietly in the corner of her living room, heavy and mysterious. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined what might be inside. Fear, curiosity, and concern battled in her mind. She wondered if opening it could bring danger, or if it could reveal the answers she wanted to know. By morning, she decided she had to see. With a deep breath, she walked slowly to the sack. Her hands shook as she touched the rough, worn surface. David stood nearby, watching her, his expression unreadable. He had not said a word since last night. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked softly. Mary swallowed hard. "I need to know. I can't leave it like this." David nodded once, almost imperceptibly. "Very well. Open it then." With trembling hands, Mary untied the knots and pulled the flap of the sack open. At first, all she could see were old papers and some worn fabrics. She reached inside carefully, lifting them one by one. Her heart pounded as she realized the sack contained photographs, letters, and personal belongings, carefully preserved despite their age. Mary opened a photograph and froze. It was a picture of a young boy smiling in a sunlit garden. Behind him, a small house that looked worn but cozy. The boy's eyes seemed familiar, almost as if they were staring directly at her. Mary felt a chill run down her spine. She looked at David, who was standing perfectly still. "These are yours?" she asked softly. David nodded slowly, his voice quiet. "Yes, all of them. All the memories I could keep. I never had a family to protect me or a place to call home. Everything I had, I lost." Mary carefully lifted a bundle of letters tied with a ribbon. She opened one and began to read. They were letters from a long-lost family member, filled with love, concern, and explanations for years of absence. Each letter told a story of hardship, betrayal, and loss. Mary realized that David had lived a life full of struggle and heartache, and that the warning he had given her, "You'll regret it," was not about physical danger, but emotional weight. You were warning me about this?" Mary asked. "About the pain I would see if I knew your story?" David nodded, his eyes distant. "Yes, my life has been filled with mistakes, danger, and sorrow. I've trusted people before, and I've been hurt. I feared that if I let anyone see the truth, it would cause trouble. For them, for me. But I had no choice. I needed help." Mary felt a wave of sympathy and sadness. She realized that the man before her was not a stranger in need of only food and shelter. He was a man carrying a lifetime of secrets, regrets, and loneliness. And in a way, he had chosen her to bear witness to his story. For hours they went through the sack together. There were photographs of places Mary had never seen, letters describing journeys and failures, and small personal items that held meaning only David could understand. Each item told a piece of his life. She learned about the people he had loved and lost, the mistakes that had haunted him, and the moments of hope that had kept him going. As Mary listened, she realized that David's warning was more than just a statement. It was a test. He wanted to know if someone could see him, all of him, without turning away in fear or judgment. And she had passed that test simply by caring. The emotional weight was heavy, but Mary felt strangely calm. She understood now that sometimes helping someone meant facing uncomfortable truths, seeing their pain, and choosing to stay despite it. She also realized that David was not asking for pity. He was asking for understanding and perhaps a chance to start again. Days turned into weeks. Mary and David developed a cautious friendship, built on trust and shared moments. Mary helped him rebuild a small routine, and David slowly shared more of his past bit by bit. She learned about the mistakes he had made in youth, the people who had betrayed him, and the times he had survived against all odds. Through this, Mary saw the resilience of the human spirit. She learned that kindness could reach even the most troubled hearts, and that everyone, no matter how broken, deserved a chance at understanding and care. David, for his part, began to open up more. He helped Mary with her garden, told stories from his life, and even shared small jokes that made her smile. The warning he had given her at first seemed distant now, almost like a shadow from the past. Mary realized that the regret he mentioned was never meant to harm her. It was a reflection of the pain he had carried alone for so long. One morning, while they sat together in the garden, David handed Mary a small, folded letter. "This is for you," he said, "for trusting me, even when I warned you not to." Mary unfolded the letter carefully. Inside was a note in simple handwriting, expressing gratitude, hope, and a promise to live differently moving forward. It was a symbol of a life transformed by human kindness. Mary felt a deep sense of peace. She understood that sometimes life brought unexpected visitors, strangers who carried burdens too heavy to carry alone, and sometimes those visitors could teach lessons that changed the very way one saw the world. The sack, once ominous and mysterious, now felt like a bridge between two lives. It had been a test, a revelation, and a source of growth. Mary no longer saw it as a symbol of fear, but as a reminder that compassion could reveal truths that were difficult, yet necessary. David eventually found small ways to earn a living in the town, quietly and without attention. Mary continued her simple life, but now it was filled with shared laughter, stories, and the quiet joy of a new friendship. The town, which had always been peaceful, seemed even warmer and more alive with the presence of someone who had been lost and then found. Mary often thought back to the moment she had first seen David on the roadside. She remembered the fear, the curiosity, and the strange warning. She realized that life sometimes brings unexpected challenges and difficult choices, but it also brings opportunities for courage, understanding, and connection. In the end, Mary understood the truth of the words David had said at first. "You saved me. You'll regret it." The regret was not for helping him, but for the emotional journey it demanded. Facing the truth of someone else's life, seeing their pain and struggles, was not easy. But the reward was far greater than any fear: friendship, understanding, and the knowledge that one act of kindness could change not just one life, but two. As Mary looked at David tending to her garden with careful hands and a quiet smile, she felt a warmth she had not known since her husband had passed. Life was unpredictable, sometimes frightening, but also full of moments that could heal old wounds and create new beginnings. And in that small home, once quiet and lonely, Mary realized that opening the sack had opened far more than just a bundle of memories. It had opened the door to a story of hope, resilience, and the enduring power of human kindness. The sun set over the town, casting a golden glow over the garden. Mary and David sat quietly, watching the light fade, feeling the calm of a day lived with courage, empathy, and understanding. And for the first time in many years, Mary felt truly at peace.